since you said Reiki, again, one of my friends actually tried Reiki on her plant, and her plant is doing much better. Something that was kind of dying out, and then, she's just learning Reiki. So she tried Reiki on the plant, and touch wood, it is doing very well. So I'd like to start with, quoting Lalita ma'am, because she's like the green fingers in this group, which is really lovely. And where we talk about gardening or plants as as like being a plant parent. That was such a lovely word that I heard when when she said being a plant parent. Yes. Can you see my screen?
It has stopped right now.
Yeah, I'll just go back to that.
We can see you.
Yeah, so sweet. Thank you.
Now the presentation, I think, went off. Yeah, now we can
No,
see
no
you.
worries. Yes.
Yeah.
All right. So being a plant parent, that's exactly how I think of plants. Obviously they are all like the plants are like babies, my plant babies, and that's exactly how planting is. So there's nothing like, you can be a good parent and you can be an awesome parent, but there's nothing like expertise, when it comes to planting. So you can be a good or an enthusiastic gardener. Like, I remember you had said that word when you said expertise, and I was like, oh my God, it's like the best, the actual stories, like the most biggest experts, or whether even if you're in a, even if you are having a nursery, or someone who's got like supposed green fingers, everyone sometime or the other does kill some plants or they die off. So that is something that is normal. So I'm just going to put a premises to my presentation. So the first one in my premises is the law of wasted effort. Now, why I started with that is, um, the law of wasted effort is that when nature procreates, that is whether you're a plant or a human being or an animal or a fish or a bird, around 25% of the sowed seed, that is a seed that actually gets sowed, or you know uh, actually procreates and becomes a full grown adult. So 25% of effort is considered like a very big success when it comes to nature. So only 25% of seeds, whether you're human beings or animals or birds, actually work out. So that is one premises which I wanted to take of gardening. The second one is, of course, like when I said, when you want to be a gardener, um, from my side, being an environmentalist, I always say you have to be very aware of the season, of the ecology around you. Now, out in the garden, when you're an animal or a bird, you are very, very conscious of the, the direction of the wind. Like, I stay in a house which is, a standalone building, so I realize, that the wind blows southwest half the year and northeast half the year. So you know which side of the house is getting more breeze. The same way with the sun doesn't rise in the same spot and set at the same spots. The moon rises at different spots. So that is another important part of when you're gardening, when you are being a plant parent, the attention to season and ecology. Like same thing in our own group. I remember the day I joined, in fact, that, someone was sharing about caterpillars. Now, normally when I see a picture of a caterpillar, I go back, of course, to Google Baba and look at what is happening. So if you saw, why did you see caterpillars, say in September, October? It's because it was the season of the migration, the butterfly migration. This year they did start, the Adhika Masam was not there for them. They did not have that extra month. So they did begin, and this year, of course, because of the unseasonal rains, so there's less caterpillars. And also you see by the end of September or October, that's the time when, actually now is when all the birds and animals have just finished mating. So there's a lot of pregnant people around. So the plants and nature creates more worms, creates more for them. So obviously it will be the worm season because it has to feed the birds. So that's why you would find more. So the seasons and ecology, actually everybody takes care of each other. As gardeners, when you become aware of that, then you know when, like say same thing, like by the end of September, like I had written in the group also in my introduction, uh, when the miners stop singing, miners will stop singing by September end. Why? Because by October, normally they found a mate, or they've already started building their nests. And when they started building their nests, so October, November is when there will be an increase in caterpillars. There'll be an increase in little bit at the autumn season. Of course, you'll find a lot of composting worms that are coming out because the leaves have fallen down. And so you'll find more composting worms, and that is good for all the birds and the monkeys or everything that procreate. Now, another important part of the premise for gardening is the microenvironment at home. Like all of us being parents, we realize the plants in your house, like your own seed. I have two boys. They are like chalk and cheese. They're completely different from each other. So you can have two plants from the same seed, from the same mama, who can be very different. One plant is doing very well, one plant they're getting the same water, they're getting the same fertilizer, they're getting the same soil, but one will decide to grow, crooked, and one will decide to go straight. So, and then of course there are microenvironments, vibrations in the home, because of which, some in certain homes and at certain times, plants are more green without an effort, and plants are less green for a reason which is not very clear. So each microenvironment, so your home, your neighbor's home, or somebody else's home in the same building or the same city, the plants will behave differently in different homes, just like our own children do. Like I said, no, from my own seeds, from one mom can be very different from each other. Same way with plants. Now, with these premises, this is how my presentation is going to be. I'm going to be presenting essentials for planning a garden. So the number one, of course, is going to be sunshine. So my presentation will start with how much sunshine and where does the plant need sunshine? How much water do different kinds of plants need? What kind of soil do each different kinds of plants need? The microenvironment, then the memories of the forest, all the plants that you see around you, they are not meant to be inside a home. They're meant to be outside in the forest. But yeah, we brought a little bit of the forest home. So how you can, kind of compensate for it and create the memories of the forest. Let me start with sunshine spots. Planning a garden is always based on your sunshine spots. So sunshine is the most important because the plants can do, like air plants, can do without too much of soil, or what is the medium that they're growing in. But one thing that most plants need, again, you can have nitrogen less soils where the plants can, are growing on they are, you have carnivorous plants, but sunshine is most important for photosynthesis. So another is, you need to see the main consideration when you choose a plant to bring inside your home to be a plant parent. You will have to see the angle of the sunshine. Now, again, the angle of the sunshine into your home does move a bit every month. So the sun goes from northeast to southeast. It rises from northeast to southeast and sets from northwest to southwest. So obviously the angle at which the plant is getting the sun is going to differ from time to time, from month to month. So that is something that you have to be very, very aware of when you are putting a plant out there. Now, always, simplest thing which I always say is, when you have any plant at home, the plant should see the sky somewhere. That is what is most. Let me start with 6 to 8 hour plants. Now, these are the most of the fruit plants, flowering plants. They all need 6 to 8 hours of sunshine, which means also they need the morning sun. These are the plants that need. So all your fruiting plants, your flowering plants, they need the early morning sun. Sorry, let me go back. So why do they need the morning sun? You realize that, like I said, plants need photosynthesis. They need sun for photosynthesis. So with photosynthesis, the chlorophyll creates the green color in the plant. But when you want more than the green color, so when you have a flower or you have a fruit, or for the like coleus, they have colorful leaves. For the colorful leaves, they need that extra sunshine. So the basic amount of sunshine to have the green and to have to have the to create the green and the lushness of the plant, but over and above that, that extra few hours of sunshine is for the flowering. So that is why the all the flowering and fruiting plants, they need 6 to 8 hours of sunshine, and preferably early morning sunshine, which is gentle and nice. And the early morning sunshine is not so sharp like the evening sunshine. Now, obviously, from where you can see me, I'm sitting in a western side house. So these are plants which need 3 to 4 hours of sunshine. So these are like succulents and a lot of the flowering succulents, or even thicker plants, not coleus, but crotons. If you have crotons, and then you have some of your herbs, and mint and methi, all these can even do with 3 to 4 hours of sunshine, which means if you have a building which is going to come off on the shade, even if you have a eastern side plant balcony, but there's a building creating shade on top of it, still it will grow quite well. So, and then things like cacti, like I said, no, a lot of cacti or succulent plants, they need heat more than they need sunshine. They need heat. The evening sun is very hot. So the setting sun will create the heat which is necessary. Again, places like Hyderabad or, Delhi, the warmer, the dry climate places where the succulents really thrive. Same thing with palak. All these need, they can easily do with a western side house. So if you have a southern or eastern side house, you can have a lot of flowering plants. If you have a western side house like mine, succulents thrive over there. And then you have the indoor plants, the plants that need low light and artificial light sometimes. How would you recognize them? They have slightly oily. So when you look at an indoor plant, sometimes you think that they're artificial. So that is one easy way of realizing it can be an indoor plant, because the leaf is slightly oily. Um, and again, so these are plants which can be kept in very low light. Now, when I say low light, despite we say, okay, we can have an indoor plant with low light, the light should see some sunshine from somewhere, even muted sunshine. And like how we say, the plant was supposed to be outside. So if it can get a glance at this of the sky from somewhere, like even if it's a southern balcony or a northern balcony, if the plant gets even a glimpse of the sky, the blue sky, that is enough for that plant. Otherwise, of course, it can be under a tube light or under muted light. It's okay, but each of the plants, when you keep an indoor plant, it does need occasionally, say at least once in 2 weeks or once a month, it needs to get out for a week and come back, just so that it doesn't have fungal growth and things like that. Or if it's inside, you need to keep spraying it or keep it directly under a tube light. And if possible, the most best circumstances of indoor plants is if they get to glimpse at the sky. So some spot in the house where they get to see. Like you see behind me, I have a ZZ plant. I'll show you that, which is right in the middle. The next part of, since I finished with sunshine now, I'm going to be talking about watering. Now, I love to water my plants. So I'm one of those people who drowns my plants. I lose more plants from overwatering than less watering. So happiness for me is blissfully watering plants. Again, watering plants is very much dependent on the season. Like now, winter season, it's preferably you water the plant in the day, in the morning, because it will feel cold in the night. Because it's like I said, no, you treat the plant like a baby. So it will feel cold in the night. Preferably you do it in the morning or in the afternoon, like now at 3 o'clock when there's still a little bit of heat. And then, of course, the micro environment, like I said, the angle of the sun. If a plant is in full sunshine, you can water it more often. If the plant is in less sunshine and it is in the shade, or it is in a spot where the water is going to evaporate little slowly, you put in less water. Again, one of the important things is there should be a few hours, or the plant cannot always have continuously wet soil. Like now, we have that tendency, like I also do, where I put a lot of coco peat into my gardening mixture. So, the soil tends to be wet for longer. So sometime, like we say, the plant should have periods when the upper soil, that is when you touch the place where the plant is touching the soil, that part of the soil should be a little dry. At least some time of the day it should be dry, because if sometimes because of overwatering, the plants die. Because if it's constantly in wet places, then unless you're a foliage plant, foliage plants can grow in water, but all other plants, they'll stop taking nutrients from the soil because of there is too much water, and then they will die because of that. So let me first show you the plants which love water, because there may be a lot of gardeners like me who just love to water plants. So of course the hibiscus plant, again the hibiscus plant is one of those plants where you can water the leaves, you don't need to water the ground only, though that particular plant loves to get wet. So, and if you keep watering the plant or washing it through and through, it's also one of those plants which is a favorite of the mealy bug and the aphids, and different kinds of insects. So hibiscus plant, you can just like spray water all over it and it will be very happy, and you can also be a happy gardener with it. Same with the ixoras. And of course your tulsi plant, every morning when you do puja, you can pour a little bit of water into your tulsi plant. So every day you water a tulsi plant, she's going to be happy. And then any plant, all the foliage plants which were originally, of course, in the rainforest, which grew in the bottom of the in the forest cover, they are very happy being in damp circumstances all the time. So all the money plant types and the plants which have those big green leaves, they are very happy in lot of water. So you can put plenty of water every day, you can water them, they will be happy. Then let me tell you about plants which need alternate day. Of course, like you say, in the winter time now, your succulents do not need every day, every alternate day, alternate week, days of the week, only once a week or twice a week. So I fix a date, like for me in my house, because it's a west facing house, not too much sunshine. So I water my plants only on a Wednesday or a Sunday. So I have fixed days, and so that, you know, the plants don't need again same thing with the pudina plant. A pudina plant dies more because of overwatering than less watering. So again, it's a very nice companion plant. So it needs, you can put it only alternate days, you can water it, or twice a week. Now in winter, twice a week is more than enough. Then you have indoor plants. Indoor plants are like, you have the snake plant, you have aloes, you have all these plants can be watered even once a week or twice a month. You give it a good soak once a week. Now, another thing which you can do is actually put a tub of water and if you have a small plant, you can put it into the tub of water, let it soak in, like especially the cacti. Instead of watering it from the top, you water it from the bottom. That is by putting it into a tub of water for about an hour on a Sunday and take it out and put it up. Or if you're having an indoor plant and you have meshed outside, so you're not going to have too many mosquitoes, you can have a pebble tray and water the pebble tray, so that the plant will soak up how much water it wants. Even twice a month is more than enough if you have a pebble tray. Now, sometimes we see this kind of thing. It's very, very common, especially in places like Bangalore. You will find a lot of leaves at least once or twice a year become brown like this. Now, one of the reasons for that is because a lot of our apartments and a lot of our communities today are getting only borewell water. And that water is very, very salty. And because of too much salt in the water, sometimes plants start getting this browning there. Which is why at least once a week, if possible, you should be adding something to the water. That is, you're not just keeping the water. So one thing which you can actually, which is good for the plant, which if you can do, you should do, is to fill up water in a bucket and let it be for about an hour, and then you water the plants with that water. Perfect for the plant, because then the salt and whatever are the extra additives, the chlorinated water and everything is going to go down, and and so the water will have less salts in it. Now, if you're not able to do that, there are simple additives that you can add to the water and put in there, at least whatever out of your alternate days of a week or twice a week if you're doing. These are some of the additives that you can put into the water. Now, one is, of course, buttermilk. It's got a lot of calcium, which is very good. It has those enzymes which are good for most of the plants. So you can have, like in a bucket of water, if you add 1 glass of buttermilk and pour it in your plants, it's very, very good for the plants. Then we have bioenzymes, which are very good. So banana peel water. So you leave banana peel in water for about a week and it will disintegrate into that. That water can be added into a bucket of water and put into plants. The plants will really like it. Then of course, neem oil in the plant will make sure that a lot of constant neem oil will ensure that you're not going to get too many insects into the plants. And then all the happy insects will still come, which are good. I'll go to that part a little later. And another very, very easy thing that you can do is the water from either you soak rice and cooked rice for about 15-20 days, or the water which you wash your rice or wash your dal in, that water you leave it for a couple of days or leave it for about a week and pour that water. That ready-made starch, the plants just love that ready-made starch. And again, if you pour it on the leaves or so, that starch will stick to the leaves. It will give some white spots here and there, but then those will make sure that your aphids don't stick on it, or your things like the black aphids or your mealy bugs. If you have a hibiscus plant, again, something you can try out is the washed rice water, washed dal water. If you can ferment it and pour it on, spray it onto the plant is going to be a happy plant. Then diluted coffee, or when you have your filter coffee, tea, again, mainly if you don't have milk tea, if you have just tea leaves which you're pouring in water without the sugar or milk, you can pour that tea also into the soil. The next part, like I said, once we've done with water, I'm going to soil. Now in soil, of course, the most important thing is, that just the pleasure for me. I just like the smell of that wet soil when you pour water. As I said, I love to water plants, and I really love that, the pitich or the wet earth smell. It's something very invigorating for most people. So soils again differ. Most plants are quite happy in their own soils. Like again, Nidhi was saying about how she goes to a resort, picks up the plant, comes. Now, one of the main reasons why some of the plants from other environments don't, because again, they are attached to their soil. So the soil is quite important. So when you replant a plant, you should be very careful that you add a little bit of the soil that it was growing in, because that's where the roots are. Some of the essentials for soil is, number one is aeration, which means at least, again, every Sunday if possible, or once a week sometime, you can have one of your old forks or pencils or something where you shake up the soil a little bit to make sure that there is aeration in the soil. Otherwise it gets caked. Most of the South Indian soils, again, they get caked very easily, and that is not good for the plant. Also, when you keep shaking it a little bit, plant is also happier. The air is going in, the water gets soaked in nicely. So a little bit of aeration is really good. Again, a low artificial fertilizer if you are putting an artificial fertilizer. Otherwise, constant replenishing. That is, if you have your compost at home fully composted, there are very few things, vegetable parts, which you can put just like that, like a potato peel or a banana peel. Yes, you can put just like that and it will compost really fast. But most of them, unless they are fully composted, you don't put half done compost into a pot. You let it be completely composted for about 3 months. Before 2 to 3 months, it should be like tea leaves when you're putting it into the plant. And once in 2-3 months is more than enough. You should not be doing it on a monthly basis. So constant replenishing, but yes, once in 2-3 months. Now, another important part of the soil, which I wanted to say, is when you get, like say you get a plant from a nursery, like when I get a plant from the nursery, either in the nursery, you can always add some of the red soil that they have into the pot and get it repotted in the nursery itself before you bring it home. Or if you are bringing home a sapling and you're going to put it at home, yes, whatever soil is around the plant, that you leave it, and the rest of the soil, preferably put your own soil and do not do any adding to it, because at the nursery, most of the time, the soil that you're getting, it's like a baby that's been fed with a lot of Complan, and because they want the flower there, a little baby plant with a lot of flowers, or they made it grow up really fast. So which is also one of the reasons why 2-3 months it'll last nicely and happily in your house, and then then it starts dying, or it flowers beautifully from when it's coming from the nursery, and then after that for about 6-8 months you don't see any flowers. It's also because the soil is filled with all these with these fertilizers and growth enhancers and things like that. So so one is, of course, you don't add any new fertilizer into a plant for at least 3-4 months after you bring it from the nursery, so nothing from your side. You add a little bit of your own soil to the plant when, if possible. If you are not going to be doing that, get it, buy a pot at the nursery, a bigger pot in the nursery itself, and ask them to add red soil along with their plant when you are, if you're bringing a potted plant home. Again, I make a lot of enzymes at home like this. A banana peel enzyme is the easiest to make. If you put a banana peel in water, leave it for about a week and a half. That water, other enzymes that you can have, if you can buy bioenzymes, again, you can add them once in 2-3 months. You'll get nice things. I'm going to be adding a little later. When do you add fertilizer? You normally add fertilizer. You don't add fertilizer to a plant when the plant is dying. So normally when a plant is dying, you just chop it off to the bare minimum, not too much, but yeah, you keep it with a little bit, where you can have spots of green spots again, and you leave it in the soil that it is, and just give it your own love rather than putting fertilizer. The fertilizer is always to be put when the plant has started giving those little tiny green leaves, or if you see the first bud. When you see the first bud, that's a good time to add the fertilizer. Not when you see brown on the plant, that if you add the fertilizer, it's going to get more brown, because it's like our babies are getting, say you're giving Complan, you're giving Ragi Kanji every day, and then suddenly you're giving one big pot of biryani to the plant, to your baby. So the baby is going to get, a stomach upset, or is going to get, so it's just like that. It's like suddenly you can't put fertilizer. So when the baby is not feeling well, you don't give biryani to the baby. You give it when the baby is like happily and in having a growth spurt. Give them a little extra to help them in that growth spurt. Again, eggshell. Suppose you do eat eggs, it's a very happy thing to put in plants, again, because it's a great for it's a pesticide as well. So it'll stop snails from coming in, all these different kinds of worms and all. The eggshells create they're pokey, and they'll hurt the skin of the insects that come on there. So it's not just a great source of nutrients for the plants. It can also be it's a great insect repellent. Putting dried eggshells, you dry them out and then you powder them and put them into the plant, into the soil of the plant. It's very happy for the plant. And most plants, again, they like a home. You can't go wrong with a home fertilizer. So if you have a vermicompost, or you have a home compost, like I do my own composting, home compost, you won't really go too wrong. But when you buy NPK, or you buy a fertilizer from the market, yes, you have to be very careful. Preferably you put them in water and then put them in there, or you mix them into soil or coco peat and put them in there. It's very good for the plant. Again, I'm going to the next part. Plants don't like to live in isolation. They don't live alone. Most plants actually belong to the forest at some point of time. So they like their insects, they like their birds, they like the animals. They're not really so welcome in our homes, but I'm going to just show a little glimpse of who are the insects who the plant likes and who are the insects that the plant don't like. Let me start with friends. Now, obviously, the obvious friends are the bees. We don't like the bees, but bees are very, very important for the plants. Then the butterflies, again, when they are a worm, they can destroy the plant completely. The caterpillars can really chomp away a lot of the plants. That, like, last month was the caterpillar season. So obviously, you would find all your citrus plants, not just are they, or early poo plants, your oleander plants. They are all the favorites of the caterpillars. And then dragonflies again. They are great pollinators. All these are very good pollinators. Then you have the predators, which are also your friends. So a spider web is your friend because it's going to be doing population control. Same thing with the praying mantis, the grasshopper, or if you find chameleons or lizards in your garden, they are very good for eating off the mosquitoes and eating off the flies. Ants, again, black ants, not the red ant. The red ant varieties are normally the termites, or who eat into the sap but of the plant of the tree or bark. But the black ants again eat away the tiny insects. If there are any tiny insects on your plant, black ants, that's why we used to put, in the olden days used to put kolam outside your house, because you like to attract black ants into the house. They do kind of keep that, think. Another very very happy thing to have around is a wasp. I know we don't like wasps, so wasps again do a good amount of population. So if you see a wasp, that means there were, these black color hornworms which come out of the soil and eat up your leaves. The wasp eats those when they are very very tiny and very very small. So like, when we go into permaculture or things like a coffee plantation, when they see wasps, they, it's actually the trees will actually secrete hormones, to invite wasps, just so that they can do the population control for the tiny worms. When the worms are still eggs, the wasps will eat them away. So they are again population control. And of course, our ladybugs, we are seeing so less of them now, but they are very very good for the garden. If you see a ladybug, you see the velvet worm. When we were in school, we used to really like those worms and put them in boxes and bring them home, because they are they are again very good friends of the plant. Now, the earthworm and your curl bug, these two are composting worms. So they are very very common at this season. Again, when you have the autumn season, you will find both earthworms and the curl bug in there, which will obviously eat up all the dead leaves. So they are composting worms. Again, they are friends of the garden. And you have the foes of the garden. Of course, our favorite foe is the mealybug. Very difficult to kill. Now, the mealybug is something that, you need to take off right in the beginning. The safest way of getting out a mealybug in your plant is to catch it right when you see the first one or two mealybugs, wipe it off or pluck off that leaf. That's the safest way of taking it away. Otherwise, the next one is, of course, washing it off with, you can mix Vim or any of the, your glass cleaner. I like to use sometimes, or a paint thinner. I kind of dilute it a lot and use it to wash off the leaf. And because the ethanol actually eats into the skin of the mealybug and gets it off the leaf very fast. Again, all our home remedies, they need to be done whenever you're trying to clean out a mealybug or any of these other bugs like the squash bug or the aphids. The squash bug, of course, you will find it in rice and in atta. You will find, there are always these seeds. And if you have rice kept in a box for a long time, you will find, after some time, you will find these tiny flying things inside the rice. That is then you have the hornworms. And of course, the biggest enemy is the blanket worm. There are no known pesticides to actually kill it. The only way to kill a blanket worm is by burning that particular part where they come in aphids. So most of these, right in the beginning, you have to take them off. Or same like aphids and squash bugs and mealybugs. Now, the first time you wash them off, it doesn't go. So it goes back into your soil. And again, they will come back. So they'll have babies. So it's like, if once they come for about 2 to 3 months, you know that every alternate day, every week, you're going to have to do that washing, putting neem oil, so it's not an easy task. One of the easiest ways, of course, if you get one of those cobra or the fertilizer or the insecticides from the market, but that does harm to your plant. It literally eats into the plant bark while they're killing the mealybug. So it's not very good to have it. But if you're using a home thing, it's not, the thing is that it will not go off in one shot. It will take 2 3 months for it to completely get eradicated. And of course, when the season changes, like now when the cold season comes in, automatically all these bugs will also go off a little and only flowers will be there. As I said earlier in the presentation, a lot of the bugs are also coming because There are birds which are supposed to eat them up, because the birds are having babies now and the babies need food, and their favorite foods are like the hornworms or the shield beetle, again favorites of the birds. Now, along with all your other fertilizers, we have pest control plants. Now, pest control plants, one of the favorite pest control plant is a marigold, or if you have, chamomile, those kinds, or the geranium. These are the favorite pest control plants. If you have these plants growing next to your vegetables, uh, automatically there are lesser bugs which come into them. These are smelly plants. They are plants which have their own smell, like a dill, the sampagi soppu, or lemongrass, citronella plants. So you grow it as a companion, or like a garlic plant. If you grow a few pods of garlic next to your tomato plant, it will keep the soil very happy, or a basil plant next to the tomato plant will keep the soil happy, and the hornworm doesn't like the smell of garlic or doesn't like the smell of dill. So the hornworm will not go into the, when you have brinjal, or you have the squash bugs, or will always go into the tomato or go into the bindi. So when you have these plants around them, they will not come, because they don't like the smell of these plants. Again, basil plants, lavender plants. So all these plants have a very strong smell. The favorite for all our farmers, of course, is the marigold. So you will find, actually, traditionally, all the fields do have alternate lines of marigold with the regular. If you're growing tomato plants or lauki plants, you will find after every 2-3 lines they will grow marigold. Sorry, yeah. If a plant is sad, do other plants photosynthesize? So I'm going to talk about how most of the plants, this is part where I call memories of the forest. All our plants were mainly always lived in the jungle. They lived in a forest. Now you're bringing them home and you're going to keep them alone. So it's like, bringing like a pet home, or you're bringing up a plant. You're trying to be a plant parent. So uh, plants do not like to live alone. They do like to have some companions with them. So this is another thing that's really trending nowadays, where you put up in one pot. So when you put a plant in a pot, you do put a couple of plants along with the main plant. So you have a flower plant, you try and you have a thriller, you have a filler, and you have a spiller. They are actually good for the plant. Same thing like here, if you have vegetable plants, if you have tomato plants or chili plants, you grow a few marigold, or you grow a few mustard, because then again they are also pollinators. So if you have a mustard plant with all those yellow flowers, there will be butterflies, there will be bees that come in, and they are good for your pumpkin plant, they're good for the chili plant. Same thing with succulents. They are, like I said, somebody like me who likes to water a lot, when you have succulents growing with other plants, they all share the water that is being poured there, so they don't die very easily. They become bigger and they grow into. So when you grow 2-3 succulents together, you maintain their size. They don't outgrow their pots too easily. So it's not like you're stunting the growth of that plant. It's actually happy. It has a brother, sister, uncles, aunties, everyone who they can talk to. They share their water, they share their resources. If somebody's also do this. See, this is in my office. This is the jade plant, and this is a tiny succulent plant that grows to cover the soil. Again, if you when they cover the soil, it makes sure that the soil doesn't dry out very easily. So companion planting, if you are having plants even within your house, having a companion plant is a very good idea. I'd just like to go back and recap my entire presentation. The first one is, of course, like I said, about sunshine. You're constantly having light, which is changing. The angle of light is changing in your house all the time. So some of the easiest ways of maintaining and make sure that your plant is happy is every time, like I said, once alternate, preferably like now winter, more than twice a week, you need not water your plants. Even if they are in full sunshine, they are quite happy getting watered alternate days or twice a week. Whenever you do water the plant, try, if you can, you try to move it a little, 1/4 of an inch or 25 degrees. If you can move the plant every time you water the plant, that makes sure that the plant all different parts of the plant get sunshine. Then of course the plants love the attention and love that you give them. So I have my morning tea with them. I sit down in the evening sometimes with my plants. Just your presence. So that's why plants in the office always will grow better than the plants at home. Again, because sometimes you get busy at home, whereas in the office, if you have a plant right on your table, the tendency of the plant being safer is there. Then again, finding the right spot, like I said, and then adding, keep checking for diseases. So you keep checking the underside of the leaf for the diseases, because once any of these bugs do get in, the safest way is taking away the leaf or cleaning off the leaf. But yes, you are 100% sure that there will be eggs, that some of the eggs will fall off into the soil, and then if you clean up the leaf also, it's going to come back again. So if you get one bug, be sure that there'll be a couple of weeks of bugs there, so you have to keep cleaning them up. You can put neem oil to clean it, to clean the leaves. Again, cleaning the leaves at least once a month is happy for the plant also. The plants look happier and healthier, and at the same time, you don't need to water them every day, but keeping the leaf clean is just happier for the plant. Then the right soil. So make sure that you have an aerated soil, any kind of soil, whether it is black soil, red soil. Don't put too many additives. About 3 to 4 times a year, you have some additives to the soil. It's more than enough. But keep shaking it up, keep having the aeration for the soil. And then again, at least once a year or once in 2 years, the plant does need replacement. That is, you need to repot the plant. Not too soon, but at least once a year. Again, most of the pots preferably should have a hole in the bottom, so a lot of water going away, so that there's no leftover stack. And again, feeding. Suppose you're putting fertilizer into a plant, always put the food into the plant when the plant has started growing, not when the plant is suffering something. So when a plant is looking like it's not happy, that's not the time to add a very strong fertilizer. You can put a home fertilizer. So you can add a little bit of your compost, or maybe even like, say, if you have Epsom salts, you pour a little bit of Epsom salt there, it will help out. Or, if you shake up the soil, add a little bit of coffee decoction, those kinds of things are very safe to put often. But otherwise, if you're using a bioenzyme or you're using something that is a stronger thing, it's better to put it when there are few new leaves coming. So again, pruning the plant. Like again, I know a lot of very educated people who used to say, oh, you love plants, so why do you buy bouquets? Now, one reason I buy bouquets are because there is a farmer there who's not growing vegetables, but he's growing flowers, and so it's helping him. And on the other side, actually, when the flower is like a rose plant is there with a flower, when the flower is about 3-4 days old, it's easier to cut it and put it for the puja, or put it on your hair or something, because pruning that plant after the flower has come will help it get more flowers. So one of the reasons why you can get good flowers is if you pluck that flower. They say, no, people say, oh, don't pluck flowers, but yes, once the flower has lived its life, like a hibiscus flower is there, it has a 1-day life. So after it is, kind of closed, you have to remove that part. You have to remove it from the soil and put it into that. Don't leave it on the plant, because the more you remove the flowers, the more it will grow lush. Pruning, again, at least once or twice a year you need to prune. Yes. So any questions? Let me just go back and see. You can unmute yourself. Did I go very fast?
No, you were absolutely fine.
Thank you so much.
It was fine. It was a very good presentation.
I have a couple of questions which I put in the chat.
Yeah, I'm just trying to find my chat. Maybe I should stop sharing. Let me see. Yes, I can see the chat now. We go back and see.
Yeah, Hamsini, I think the first question was from Madhu Mehra, so maybe you can start from there.
Yeah, can I use used tea leaves and leftover coffee from the filter coffee? Filter coffee is very nice. From after making a decoction, that coffee is very good, especially for flowering plants. So if you have a flowering plant, you should definitely put coffee there. It's something that the plant is very happy with. If you're using tea leaves, you should make sure that it is not tea leaves which is boiled with milk and with sugar.
Okay.
So if you don't have so if it's not got milk in it and if you just boiled regular tea, the tea leaves are happy to be put in the plant. And plastic pots, yes, because for the lasting, and again because they are lighter, everyone does use a lot of plastic pots. But yes, when you have a plastic pot, you should be repotting that plant at least once a year, because the soil gets deteriorated very fast. The plastic does seep into the soil, so it does, the soil inside a plastic pot deteriorates faster than in a terracotta or a ceramic pot,
Because
because of
nowadays I find that terracotta pots, after some time, the edge goes very fast. And if they are
correct,
not
yes,
baked properly, they break.
that's right.
Yeah.
But yes, they retain the water, so that's why it
Yeah,
keeps
they
that
retain actually yeah. The plants
the
can
ambient
breathe
temperature of the
when you
plant is
have a
happier in a terracotta pot.
terracotta pot. Yeah, I agree to it. Yeah.
I have a
So if you
question.
have a plastic pot, we can't really do away with the plastic pots, because they are they last a long time. They come in nice colorful colors now. So all of us
Yeah.
like the plastic pot. But if you have a plant in a plastic pot, you need to replant it, at least, change the soil and or replant it without fail every year, because yes, the soil deteriorates very fast inside a plastic pot because it gets heated, so it's hot inside the plastic pot, and of course a little bit of the plastic also seeps into the
Yeah.
another
Thank you.
is eggshells. Yeah, eggshells should be on the top of the soil, so it should be mixed on, it can be left on top. That's why it needs to be dried out and crushed. So it doesn't need to be mixed very much into the soil, so it doesn't have to go into the potting mix, it goes on top of the thing. Does organic soil help? Yes, very much. Yes, when the water from the washed dal or the rice needs to start smelling after 2-3 days. Yes, it is smelly. That smelly sticky thing is what is high on B12. So that is something that the plant really likes. It likes that sticky, smelly thing, which is, when the plants are not making their own sap, or they don't have a mother tree next to them who's throwing sap on them. So when you leave your washed dal or washed rice water for a few days, like 2 or 3 days or 5 days, and then you pour it on the plant, it creates that stickiness on the stem and on the leaf, which the plant likes, and it's B12. It's just natural B12 and it's ethanol, and so make sure the bugs don't come. But yes, it is a bit stinky. So, but then it's good for the plant.
So it can be put on all the plants or some special plants which like it.
The plants, ma'am. Most of the plants. Most
Oh,
plants, all of them like so you are not going to put it every day. Like I said, no,
yeah.
nobody likes medicine every day. But yes, once a week or so, because nowadays the problem is the water. Earlier, people used to have water from natural sources. Uh, Today's water is treated water. It has a lot more salt and it has all kinds of additives in it, which is not very happy for the plant. So unless you're going to be leaving the water for a while before you pour it into the plants, you don't. You preferably, if you add these additives, it will be good for the plant as well.
I have
No,
a
and even
few
the
questions.
rice and dal
Can I
these days
speak?
are not very pure. I mean, you've got to clean them
That's
100 times.
true, correct. But yeah, but it's a ready-made starch for the plant.
Maybe there was
About this
another
coffee and
question
tea leaves.
from Sandhya. She had asked, what is potting soil?
Potting soil is mainly, there is soil, there is regular, so you have a red soil or black soil, and they mix a bit of vermicompost in it, and they mix a little bit of the coco peat in it. So it's mixed normally in 20-20-40, and you mix it up that is a basic soil for all new pots.
So we don't have to add another some more coco peat or anything to it, because I've been adding more coco peat So it's not required.
So coco peat is awesome to add when you know like it depends on how much of water. When you have a lot of coco peat in your plant, it's not going to hurt your plant in any way, but you're going to make sure that you don't water the plant too much. You have to wait for it to see. The coco peat keeps it wet for a
Wet,
while.
yeah.
It keeps the soil wet longer. So when if you have a lot of coco peat, a lot of people I know literally grow plants only in coco peat.
Coco
They
peat,
don't put
yes.
soil at all, and it's an excellent medium to grow in. But yeah, you have the biggest fear with coco peat or your regular with wood chips kind of plants. Those that kind of mix is very good for succulents and all, but you have to make sure that you don't water it very often. Coco peat is good for a lazy gardener who's going to water, say every Sunday ke Sunday I'm going to water my plant. I'm not going to water otherwise. Can grow it in coco peat.
Kanchana, you can ask your question. I think you've been trying
Yes,
to ask.
Kanchana, sorry.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay. I bought this filter coffee and this tea. Knowing me, I'll probably put too much of it. So would you be able to tell me how much and then how often? And do we have to mix the soil, the topsoil, when you're doing that?
Actually, I know people who can just put 1 spoon right at the place where the stem touches the soil. They put 1 spoon of it, like for a rose plant or a jasmine plant or a curry park plant. Those kinds of plants, you can just put 1 spoon right at the place where the plant is touching the soil. Otherwise, if you're putting it in all the plants, you can mix it into a bucket of water or half a bucket of water and pour it in.
Okay, so that should not be repeated too often, maybe once a week,
Correct,
because we
yes.
drink tea
Not
and
very
coffee
often. Not
every day.
like we have coffee every day. You can't put it every day. Sorry.
Right.
It's better to add it to the compost. But yeah,
I'm
once
sorry,
a
I'm
week would
asking
be
all
good.
these very, very basic questions.
Not at all, ma'am.
because
Not at all. Like I said, no. Being a plant parent is plants don't come with any kind of. They don't come with a user manual. That is a sad part.
That's
Like
that,
how
yeah.
babies don't come with user manuals. Plants also are just fussy people. So your coffee decoction is like biryani for the plant. So you can't give biryani every
Right.
day.
Okay,
But you
now
give
I'll
biryani
remember
once
that
in a way,
very
baby is very
clearly.
happy.
Right. And the banana peel, which you mentioned, putting it in water and soaking it and then using it. Again, I find a lot of these fruit flies coming for any of these soaked vegetables, peels or anything, So I'm wondering whether
Guys,
there's a
this
better
is,
way.
yeah, it was the fruit fly season, say like even till last week. Now, even if you go to the compost pit, there are not many fruit flies. Now is the season of the light, those light butchies, the ones which come for
Right.
light. So that
Yeah.
it's a season. So the seasons go. So about 2-3 times in a year only. So the fruit fly season is over. No, they're not going to get too many fruit flies in this weather. But then yes, they are part of the nature. There is, if you are going to have, but banana peel water, if you put the banana peel into a plastic container and leave it for about a week, it will disintegrate nicely. And then you mix it with water and pour it onto the plants. The plants are going to be happy. And again, you can't go wrong with banana peel. It will never hurt the plant. You can put as much as you want, and the plant is going to always be happy because it is actually NPK. It's got phosphorus, it's got nitrogen, it's got potassium. It's very good for the plant.
So what
Like we
I've
can
been
eat banana
doing
every day,
is,
plant can eat banana every day.
yeah, so what I've done is I've dried the banana peels and I've powdered it and I use that.
Awesome,
Is that
lovely.
okay?
Yes,
that
very
fine,
much.
right?
That's a lot of effort, but it's very good.
Yeah, I'm trying really hard to be a good parent, plant parent.
No, again, sorry. Yeah, that's one thing which I wanted to say again.
Okay.
Like how children feel the pressure when you look at like how you look at a baby and say, "Tumko doctor banna hai, tumko engineer banna hai, tumko अच्छे marks लाना है." The babies get pressure like that. Plants also get pressure. So
Right.
sometimes you just have to leave them alone. And yeah, so giving the plant, when you keep looking at the plant feels what you feel, which is what I was saying. One of my friends who's in America, she just started learning Reiki. So she started trying it out on the plant, and the plant reacted so well to the Reiki. All the leaves started growing again. It's because it's autumn now, all of it lost, and all the baby leaves started coming in faster. So she was very happy. So again, same thing. So you can sit next to the plant and then sometimes wish, okay, maybe, or just touch it and say you're good and all. But when you feel that pressure, you better, give me flowers and give me it. The plant doesn't do well under pressure. It's a pleasurable exercise. It's not something that you should feel bad about.
I have a question about hanging plants.
Filter coffee powder is good for a hibiscus plants. I have a variety
Yeah,
of
very
hibiscus
much.
plants.
All
I can
flowering
use that?
plants.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, ma'am, somebody was speaking.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was an amazing presentation. I really learned so much, really. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you, Kanchana. Kanchana, I'm going to be there all the time. I'm going to put my flag up and say, yes,
Yeah,
yes,
I
you can do
actually
it.
have
You
a
can
lot of
do it.
questions, but I don't think I should ask any more now. Maybe on the group I'll ask later.
Sure,
Thank you.
Actually,
anytime,
there are
anytime.
some more questions there. Sheila is asking also, what about plants in tires? I heard it helps to retain the humidity.
Yes, it does. Again, same thing like plastic. The tires do get hot very fast. They are treated rubber, so the tires need to be kept in a slightly shady place. It cannot be kept in hot sun. If it's in the hot sun, you can only grow certain plants which can take heat. For example, like a fern will grow happily. But if you're putting a flowering plant like geranium or any of the your portula, those kinds of plants, it cannot be, even though they are sun loving plants, you should put it in a place where there's morning sun, and by about 9:30, 10 the sun goes away from there. Because if the tire takes the evening sun or the hot sun, then that's not good for the plant. So it has to be, the tire can be kept in a place which has the morning sun and not the afternoon sun.
Okay, that's a good tip. Nilofer has a follow-up question to the smelly water question. She says, so we put the smelly water on leaves also?
Yes, actually you do.
And when we soak the banana peels in water, do we need to add jaggery?
Not jaggery is only see, jaggery, you don't add jaggery to banana peel tea. Can just have banana peel tea. If you're going to keep it for a long time, if you want it to last, then you put jaggery in it. Otherwise, if you're going to finish it off and say once a month I'm putting the banana peel water, and once a month I'm going to put that water on my plants, you can keep it for 1 month and then put it in the plants and forget about it for one more plant. But if you're going to keep it for a longer time, then you need to add jaggery. So jaggery is basically the agent which is going to keep it for a longer. Now again, if you jaggery is very nice if you have bugs, no? If you have bugs already in your plant and you're putting, all these sprays and trying to, like the rice dal water, no? If you soak it for a long time, that is, soak it for 10 days and spray it, it's a nice spray to wash the mealy bugs away. It will become ethanol. It becomes natural ethanol, and it seeps into the skin of the aphids. The mealy bug has this woolly skin, because of which it does not. So when you spray it, and it's a very good cleaning agent. That smelly water is very good to clean off the aphids, to clean off any fungus which is forming on top of the leaves. Once that is done, the leaf is burning. It's like having it's like an astringent for the leaf. So when the leaf is feeling that burning sensation, you can add the jaggery water with turmeric on it, or you can add neem oil on it, and then so it feels a little happy. So the jaggery is again instant sugar. It's like food for the plant.
Okay, there are two more questions related to
Hello,
coffee.
Hansini.
Lalita, 1 second. I will just finish the chat box questions.
Okay.
Yeah.
Finish yours.
Yeah. So Arpita is asking, can we put coffee decoction for all plants?
Most of the plants, but preferably flowering plants.
Okay. And Sheila is asking, can coffee granules be added to the plants?
Coffee granules, not really. If it is filter coffee decoction, after that filter coffee is gone off, and then you have the balance, the coffee powder, that you can put. But instant coffee, no, unless you're preferably not granules or instant coffee.
Okay. And Mala is asking, how often should pruning be done?
Pruning should be done maximum twice a year, or like I said, if you have a rose, like you have roses growing, once the rose flowers and finishes flowering and it is dying, immediately you have to cut off. That is what the nursery does. If you go to a nursery, you'll notice they're constantly cutting off whenever a plant flowers. After the flower comes off, don't leave the dead flower over there. You take it off and then you chop off that little bit, either where the flower is touching the plant, or little more, then you cut it and then you get a fresh growth. So that amount of pruning is very important. Another time of pruning is at this time. This is a very good time to prune. When the winter has just set in, if you prune now, you will get a nice thing. So just after the season, like you have the change of season, and when it's just getting settled down. Now, yeah, so that's one thing I wanted to say actually. When a good time to prune is when there's a 10-degree difference in the temperature, which means from morning to evening to night, there should be 10 degrees difference. That is where the plants are most happiest. So if like a winter time, if there is hardly 2-3 degrees difference, that is not a healthy time for the plant. That is a time when the plant will reproduce, which means you see a lot of flowers. That means the plant is reproducing. So it will happen when the temperature is not. But when the temperature is 10 degrees apart, that's a good time to prune.
Okay. Nilofer has a follow-up question. She's asking if I'm adding eggshells and rice or dal water and banana peel, also tea, do I need to alternate these, like one thing each week, alternating with plain water? How do you kind of use all of them together, kind of a thing?
Correct. You can use all of them together, or you can use them, but whatever you do, it should not be very often. It should be, say, once or twice in a month, not more than that. But like say alternate times. Suppose like say now in winter, more than twice a week watering the plant is not enough. You need to water it only once and twice a week, not more than that. So say alternate for every fortnight, you can add something to the plant, to the water.
Okay. Okay, Mr. Devraj has a slightly different question. He says, I and my wife Nandini live in Malleshwaram. We need help to improve the existing plants and add new ones. Is there any person who can help us out? Would you have any leads on that?
I don't right now, but I know that if you can actually follow My Dream Garden online, if you follow My Dream Garden online, they do have a lot of tips that they give. So then you go to the local nursery and you pick somebody from there who will come and take care of your plants, and then you can guide them based on what happens. On Facebook, they have a Facebook live session. It's mostly, they do a lot of marketing there, but at the same time, they give you a lot of tips, which is based on seasons and the current temperature in Bangalore. So it's a nice site to follow, My Dream Garden.
Okay, that's good to know.
See,
is asking, what about ginger
garlic paste? Correct.
Yeah.
Sorry. So the ginger, so what I do is I don't put ginger. The garlic, I buy these peeled garlic from the supermarket. So there are some which are got spoiled. Those, and then all my Sadawa green chilies, all these I mix it up in the mixie or beat it up. And then I add a few neem leaves and leave it overnight in 1 mug of water. And then I strain it out and add it into a bucket of regular water and then pour it onto the plant. That is how you pour it. You can't put, so this mixture needs to be kept overnight in water.
Okay. Shaila has a follow-up question to that coffee thing where you said not instant coffee, but she's asking, but how about leftover filter coffee granules?
Perfect. Yes. Leftover filter coffee granules is fine. Not instant coffee.
And
how to grow garlic is you have to keep regular garlic pod, any garlic pod, you keep it in a wet tissue for about 1 week. Now is a good time. Now is a very good time to grow garlic. Or the green garlic grows in winter, and in a lot of parts of India, like you say Maharashtra and Gujarat and all, they make the winter like undio, and this green garlic chutney and all is made at this time because green garlic grows beautifully at this time of the year. So this is a very good time to grow green. The second part of the year, that is from March to November, it doesn't grow. So before March, anytime from all the way from September to March, garlic will grow beautifully.
Awesome. Lalita, please go ahead and ask your question now.
Nothing much. Actually, it is not a question. I just wanted to know, will you continue being in the group?
Of course I will be. I love watching your, I look for every day to see what pictures you're sending.
Okay, okay. That was a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful presentation covering everything.
Thank you so much. Thank you.